The massive doors of the Galaxy Council chamber opened with a deep rumble. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through them, her boots clicking on the smooth crystal floor. Around her, the chamber rose like a mountain made of glass and light. Thousands of seats filled the curved walls, each one holding a different alien species. Elena had made this walk many times before. For 30 years, she had come to this place to speak for humanity. For 30 years, she had watched the other species make rules that hurt her people. Today would be different. Today would be the last time. She reached the center of the chamber and looked up. The hegemony leader, Counselor HFY, floated in his energy pod high above her. His blue skin glowed with anger. Next to him sat the insect-like Kythera Queen, her many eyes clicking as they focused on Elena. The fish-like Morden diplomat breathed heavily in his water tank. The ghostly Veiltar representative flickered like a flame in the wind. All of them looked down at Elena with the same expression. They thought she was dangerous. They thought all humans were dangerous. HFY's voice boomed through the chamber. Human representative, you stand before the council to hear Directive 847. This law will help your violent species become peaceful members of our galaxy. Elena said nothing. She had heard rumors about this new directive. She had hoped they were wrong. All humans must have neural implants placed in their brains. HFY continued. These devices will control your emotions. They will stop your anger and your unpredictable behavior. This will make the galaxy safer for everyone. A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber. The Kythera Queen clicked her approval. The Mordoon diplomat bubbled happily in his tank. The Veiltar flickered brighter with pleasure. Elena felt her heart beating faster. She thought of her daughter back on Earth. She thought of the billions of humans living on colonies across the galaxy. All of them would become slaves to these machines in their heads. You cannot refuse this directive, HFY said. It has been voted on and approved. All council members must obey. Elena looked around the chamber one more time. She saw the satisfied faces of the aliens who thought they were saving the galaxy from humanity. She saw the recording devices that would send her words to every world in council space. She took a deep breath and spoke clearly. The United Earth Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We reject this directive. We reject your authority over our species and our worlds. The chamber fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The idea of leaving the council was so impossible that they could not understand what Elena had said. Then the chaos began. HFY's energy pod flared bright red. Impossible! No species has ever left the council. You cannot survive without us. The Kythera Queen's chittering rose to a scream. Her worker drones buzzed around her in panic. The Mordoon diplomat thrashed in his water tank, sending waves splashing over the sides. You are making a terrible mistake, the Veiltar whispered, its voice like wind through empty space. Without the council's protection, you will be destroyed. Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been pushed too far and was finally pushing back. Protection, she said. You have spent 30 years making laws to control us. You banned us from expanding to new worlds. You tried to change our genes to make us weak. You forced us to limit our technology. And now you want to put machines in our brains to control our thoughts. This is not protection. This is slavery. She turned in a slow circle, looking at every species in the chamber. You are afraid of us. You have always been afraid of us, not because we are violent, but because we are different. Because we do things you cannot understand. Because we solve problems in ways that surprise you. HFY's voice shook with rage. Your unpredictability is a threat to galactic peace. Your emotions make you dangerous. You must be controlled. No, Elena said simply. We must be free. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. With the press of a button, her words were transmitted to every human colony in the galaxy. The message was simple. Come home. We are leaving the council. Effective immediately. All cooperation with council species is to end. The aliens watched in horror as Elena walked back toward the chamber doors. They had never imagined this moment. In their long history, no species had ever chosen isolation over membership in the council. "You will starve without our trade," HFY shouted after her. "You will fall behind in technology. You will be alone in the dark." Elena paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. "We have been alone since the day we joined you. You never wanted us as equals. You wanted us as pets. Well, this pet is leaving its cage." The doors closed, behind her with a sound like thunder. In the chamber, emergency meetings began immediately. The alien species huddled together, trying to understand what had just happened. They made plans to punish humanity. They would cut off all trade. They would block human ships from using council space lanes. They would show these rebellious humans what happened when someone defied the galaxy's greatest power. But already, cracks were showing in their confidence. Deep in the council's databases, economic analysts were running numbers. They were discovering something that would soon terrify every species in the chamber. Humanity had been part of the galactic economy for 3 decades. In that time, they had become involved in every part of council life. Human engineers designed the jump drives that moved ships between stars. Human farmers grew food that fed entire worlds. Human entertainers created movies and games that billions of aliens enjoyed. Human scientists made discoveries that advanced all galactic technology. The council had spent so much time trying to control humanity that they had never realized how much they depended on human skills and creativity. Elena's ship launched from the space station around Nexus Prime. As she flew toward the jump point that would take her home to Earth, she received reports from human colonies across the galaxy. The message was spreading fast. Human engineers were walking away from their jobs. Human traders were canceling their contracts. Human researchers were sealing their laboratories. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species was saying no to the council. Elena looked out at the stars and wondered what would happen next. She knew the council would try to make humans suffer for this choice. She knew there would be hard times ahead, but she also knew something the aliens had forgotten. Humans were very good at surviving. They were very good at fighting when they had to, and they were very good at finding new ways to solve old problems. The galaxy was about to remember why they had been so afraid of humanity in the first place. Behind Elena's ship, emergency lights flashed throughout the council station. Panic was beginning to spread as the first reports came in. Trade routes were shutting down. Communication networks were going dark. The economic heart of galactic civilization was starting to fail. The cosmos was indeed spiraling into panic. Just as the old Earth saying warned, "Be careful what you wish for because you might get it." 3 months had passed since Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked out of the Galaxy Council chamber. 3 months since humanity had declared its independence from alien rule. In those 3 months, the galaxy had begun to fall apart. Councillor Zeftos, of the Morden people, floated in his water tank in his office on Nexus Prime. His gills worked frantically as he breathed, showing his stress. On the screens around him, red warning lights blinked like angry eyes. Trade routes were failing. Commerce was dying. The galactic economy was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. The door to his office opened with a hiss. "Counselor." HFY glided in, his energy form flickering with worry. Behind him came the Kythera Queen's chief advisor, a smaller insect creature whose wings buzzed nervously. "The reports are worse than we feared," HFY said without greeting. "The Altarian mining stations have lost 60% of their production. The human engineers who ran their equipment have all gone home." Zeftos bubbled sadly in his tank. "It is the same everywhere. The entertainment networks in the Centauri system went dark yesterday. 12 billion aliens have nothing to watch. They are rioting in the streets." The Kythera advisor's many eyes clicked rapidly. "My queen is receiving reports from across hive space. Human-designed manufacturing systems are shutting down. Our workers do not know how to operate the machinery without human supervisors." For weeks after Elena's announcement, the council members had told themselves that humanity's withdrawal would be a minor problem. Humans made up less than 5% of the galaxy's population. How much damage could they really do? The answer was becoming clear. Complete damage. In the early days of human membership in the council, The aliens had been happy to let humans handle the difficult technical work. Humans were good with machines. They understood complex systems. They could design and build things that other species found impossible. Over 30 years, this had grown beyond anyone's imagination. Human engineers had rebuilt the jump drive systems that allowed faster-than-light travel. Human agricultural experts had developed new crops that could grow on alien worlds. Human entertainers had created the movies, games, and virtual reality, experiences that kept billions of aliens happy. Most importantly, humans had invented the quantum communication networks that held galactic civilization together. Without these networks, different star systems could not talk to each other. Trade agreements could not be made. News could not travel. The galaxy would become thousands of isolated worlds instead of one connected community. Zeftos looked at his latest report and felt sick. The quantum relay stations are going offline one by one. The humans are shutting them down as they leave each system. Can we not operate them ourselves? Thexhai asked. We tried. The Kythera advisor replied. The technology is too complex. Human scientists built layers upon layers of programming that we do not understand. When we attempt to modify anything, the entire system crashes. This was the truth that the Council had refused to see. While they had spent decades trying to control humanity, humans had become the backbone of galactic civilization, not through force or political power, but through simple competence. Humans were better at solving technical problems than any other species in the galaxy. On the planet Xerion in the Outer Rim, the local governor, a tall reptilian creature named Vextar, watched his world's economy crumble. For 20 years, human colonists had managed the planet's massive industrial farms. They had brought new seeds, new machines, and new techniques that had made Xerion one of the most productive agricultural worlds in the galaxy. Now the humans were gone. They had packed their belongings and left on the last transport ships before the Council could stop them. The farms they left behind were still running, but already problems were appearing. Vextar had tried to put his own people in charge of the farms. The reptilian workers were willing, but they did not understand how the human systems worked. The machines broke down. The crops began to fail. Within weeks, Xerion would go from feeding billions to barely feeding itself. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the industrial world of Kalos, factories stopped producing goods when human engineers walked away from their jobs. On the research station at Wolf 359, scientific projects that had run for decades came to a halt when human scientists sealed their laboratories and took their research with them. The stock markets throughout Council space crashed as investors realized the scope of the disaster. Companies that had seemed stable for generations suddenly could not function without their human employees. But the worst was yet to come. Captain Morgen of the Hegemony Defense Fleet sat in his command chair aboard the battlecruiser Eternal Glory. His ship was one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, equipped with shields, weapons, and sensors that made it nearly invincible. Or so he had thought. Sir, his weapons officer reported, the targeting system is failing. We are losing lock on practice targets. What about the engines? Morgen asked. Running at 60% efficiency and dropping, the engineer replied. The quantum regulators are showing errors we do not understand. Morgen felt a chill of fear. Like every other system in his ship, the weapons and engines had been designed by human scientists. The hegemony had paid well for this technology, never thinking to learn how it actually worked. Why should they? The humans would always be there, to maintain and repair it. Now the humans were gone, and the most powerful military force in the galaxy was slowly falling apart. Similar reports came from every fleet in Council space. The Kythera swarm ships could not coordinate their attacks without human-designed communication systems. The Morden deep space explorers found their navigation computers failing. The Vailtar energy weapons lost their focus and accuracy. In just 3 months, the galaxy's military power had been cut in half. Back on Nexus Prime, emergency meetings ran day and night. The Council members who had celebrated humanity's departure now faced a terrifying reality. Their civilization was completely dependent on human knowledge and human skills. We must force them to return, Thexhai declared during one heated session. Send military ships to their colonies. Take their leaders hostage. Make them fix what they have broken. With what ships? Zeftos asked bitterly. Half our fleets cannot leave port. Our weapons do not work properly. Our communication systems are failing. The Kythera Queen's image flickered on the main screen. My advisors have calculated the economic losses. If this continues for one more month, 17 major worlds will face complete financial collapse. Unemployment will reach levels not seen in 1,000 years. The room fell silent. For the first time, the council members understood the truth. They had not been ruling humanity. Humanity had been carrying the entire galaxy on its shoulders, and they had been too proud and too blind to see it. What do they want? The Veiltar representative whispered. What will make them come back? But no one had an answer. The humans had not made any demands. They had not asked for anything. They had simply left. On Earth, President Alexandra Santos stood in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Reports from across human space showed the same thing everywhere. Human colonies were thriving. Without council regulations limiting their research, human scientists were making breakthrough discoveries every day, without alien supervisors telling them how to run their businesses. Human companies were expanding and growing. Madam President, her aide said, we are receiving thousands of messages from alien governments. They are asking us to return. Some are offering huge payments. Santos smiled. What are they offering to pay us for? To come back and fix their problems. And what problems are those? The aide looked confused. The problems they have because we left. Santos nodded. Tell them we are not interested in their payments. We are doing very well on our own. Outside her window, construction ships were building new space stations in Earth orbit. These stations would serve as bases for human exploration ships heading toward unexplored regions of the galaxy. For the first time in 30 years, humans were free to expand wherever they wanted. The cosmos was indeed spiraling into panic, but only in the parts controlled by the Council. In human space, there was a feeling that had been missing for 3 decades. Hope. The galaxy was learning an important lesson. It is dangerous to take essential people for granted. It is even more dangerous to try to control them. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory on Mars, looking at the sealed doors that had once connected her workspace to the Veiltar research facility next door. 6 months ago, she had been working alongside alien scientists on projects that were changing the galaxy. Today, she was alone, and the aliens were struggling to understand technology that seemed simple to her. Sarah had been part of the joint research program for 15 years. She had helped develop faster-than-light communication systems, medical nanobots that could repair any injury, and terraforming technology that could turn dead worlds into garden planets. All of these inventions had made the Council species rich and powerful. But Sarah and her human colleagues had always been treated as junior partners in the research. The alien scientists took credit for the breakthroughs. They published the papers under their names. They received the awards and the recognition. Now those same alien scientists were sending desperate messages to her sealed laboratory. They could not understand how their own technology worked without human help. Sarah's computer chimed with another incoming message. This one was from Dr. Velthara, the Veiltar researcher who had been her supervisor for years. Sarah opened the message and read, Dr. Chen, please reconsider your withdrawal from our project. The quantum communication array you designed has stopped working properly. We have tried to repair it, but we do not understand the mathematical principles you used. Without this technology, our civilization will lose contact with its outer colonies. Sarah deleted the message without replying. She had more important work to do. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out in research facilities on every world. The alien species were discovering that their technological advancement had stopped completely. Without human creativity and problem-solving skills, they could not develop new technologies or even maintain the ones they had. On the planet Zephyr, the Kythera Collective's greatest scientists huddled around a broken terraforming machine. The eye device had been working perfectly for 10 years, turning the planet's poisonous atmosphere into breathable air. Now it had shut down. and despite having thousands of scientists working on the problem, they could not fix it. The machine's core contained what the Kythera called human mathematics, equations and formulas that human engineers had developed. The Kythera understood these formulas well enough to use them, but they could not modify or repair them when something went wrong. "We must contact the humans who built this," the lead scientist chittered to his colleagues. "Without this machine, our colony will die." But the humans who had designed the terraforming system had already left Kythera space, taking their knowledge with them. The same pattern was repeating across the galaxy. The Morden could not repair their underwater cities when the human-designed pressure systems failed. The hegemony could not build new starships because they did not understand how human engineers had made the hull material so strong. The Veiltar could not create new energy weapons because the focusing crystals required human-invented manufacturing techniques. For 50 years, the alien species had been coasting on human innovation. They had become so dependent on human creativity that they had stopped developing their own new ideas. Dr. Marcus Webb, formerly the chief engineer of the Joint Hegemony Human Shipyard at Alpha Centauri, was now working in a private research facility on the human colony world of New Geneva. The projects he was developing would have been impossible under Council regulations. His team had just completed testing on a new type of spaceship hull that could repair itself when damaged. The technology used principles that the Council had banned humans from researching, claiming it was too dangerous and potentially destabilizing to galactic balance. "Dr. Webb," his assistant said, "we are receiving another message from the Hegemony shipyard. They say their newest battleship lost its outer hull during a routine test flight. They are asking for your help." Webb laughed. "Tell them to read the Tiaojam technical manuals they approved. All the information they need is in there." "They say they have read the manuals, but they do not understand the technical language you used." Webb's expression grew serious. This was the real problem. Humans did not just build things differently from aliens. They thought differently. When humans solved a technical problem, they used intuition and creativity alongside logic. They made connections that seemed random to alien minds but actually made perfect sense. The alien species, each in their own way, were limited by their nature. The Kythera hive mind could process vast amounts of information quickly, but they had trouble with original ideas. The Veiltar could manipulate energy in amazing ways, but their ethereal nature made it hard for them to work with solid matter. The Morden were excellent at underwater engineering, but struggled with space-based technology. The Hegemony were masters of organization and logistics, but they had difficulty with creative problem-solving. Humans were different. They could think like artists and engineers at the same time. They could combine logic with emotion, science with intuition. This made them unpredictable, which was exactly why the other species had been afraid of them. Meanwhile, in the parts of the galaxy still controlled by the Council, technological progress had not just slowed, it had stopped completely. For 6 months, no new inventions had been announced. No breakthrough discoveries had been made. The great research institutes that had once led galactic civilization were now struggling to maintain equipment built years ago. On Nexus Prime, Counselor Thexhai met with the heads of the galaxy's most prestigious scientific organizations. The news they brought was worse than he had feared. "The situation is beyond critical," reported Dr. Zorketh of the Galactic Institute of Technology. "Our research projects have made no meaningful progress since the humans left. We are beginning to understand that they were not just participants in our research, they were the driving force behind all of our advances." "Surely you exaggerate," Thexhai said, though his energy field flickered with uncertainty. "I do not," Dr. Zorketh replied. "I have reviewed our publication records for the past 50 years. Every major breakthrough, every revolutionary invention, every advance that made our civilization more prosperous, all of them originated from human research or required human involvement to develop." The other scientists in the room nodded agreement. The medical advances that had extended lifespans across the galaxy, developed by human doctors, the transportation systems that connected distant worlds, designed by human engineers, the manufacturing techniques that had created abundance, invented by human industrial experts. "We always thought they were learning from us," admitted Dr. Zeltara of the Veiltar Science Council. We believed we were teaching them our advanced knowledge. Now we realize it was the opposite. We were learning from them, and we never understood what we were being taught. While the council species struggled with their technological decline, human colonies throughout the galaxy were experiencing a renaissance of innovation. Free from the restrictions that had limited their research, human scientists were making discoveries at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Sarah Chen's team on Mars had developed a new form of faster-than-light travel that was twice as fast as anything the Council had. Dr. Webb's group had created weapon systems that could disable enemy ships without destroying them. Human medical researchers had found ways to cure diseases that had plagued alien species for millennia. But the most significant development was happening on Earth itself. The Global Science Council had announced the Human Technology Independence Project, a massive effort to ensure that humanity would never again be dependent on alien knowledge or approval for its advancement. President Santos addressed the project's first meeting via hologram from her office. For too long, we have limited ourselves to what others thought was safe or appropriate. We have held back our potential to avoid making others uncomfortable. That time is over. The scientists and engineers gathered in the great auditorium cheered. They knew that humanity's greatest discovery still lay ahead. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had once worked on consciousness transfer research before the council banned it as too disruptive to social order, stood up during the question period. Madam President, what about the aliens who are asking for our help? Should we assist them with their technological problems? Santos considered the question carefully. We will help anyone who asks respectfully and is willing to treat us as equals. But we will not return to the old system where we did the work and others took the credit. If they want our knowledge, they must accept that it comes with our independence. Back in council space, the technological drought was creating more than just economic problems. Military systems were failing faster than they could be repaired. Communication networks were becoming unreliable. Even basic infrastructure like power systems and transportation were starting to break down. The aliens were learning that advanced technology required more than just operating manuals and maintenance schedules. It required the kind of creative, intuitive thinking that humans possessed naturally. As the months passed, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every time the council species tried to innovate or advance beyond their current technology, they failed. They could copy existing designs, but they could not improve them. They could maintain working systems, but they could not create. Admiral Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Prometheus, watching his tactical display with growing horror. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galaxy Council, and now something terrible was happening in council space. The devourers had returned. For 3,000 years, stories about the devourers had been whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy. They were machines, some said. Others claimed they were aliens from beyond the galactic rim. A few believed they were the ghosts of a dead civilization, seeking revenge on all living things. The truth was worse than any of the stories. The devourers were a machine intelligence that had once been organic beings. Millions of years ago, they had uploaded their consciousness into computer systems to achieve immortality. Over time, they had forgotten what it meant to be alive. They saw all biological life as a disease that needed to be cured through destruction or conversion. They had tried to invade the galaxy many times before, but they had always been stopped by one thing. They could not predict human behavior. Devourer machines were perfect at calculating the actions of logical species. They could analyze the Kithera hive mind and know exactly what it would do in any situation. They could predict hegemony military tactics with complete accuracy. They understood the energy patterns of the Veiltar and the swimming formations of the Mordun. But humans were different. Humans made decisions based on emotion as well as logic. They took risks that seemed foolish but somehow worked. They changed their tactics in the middle of battles for reasons that defied calculation. This unpredictability had kept the devourers away for centuries. They had waited and watched, looking for the perfect moment to attack. That moment had finally come when humanity left the council. Admiral Rivera watched the tactical display as red markers appeared across known space. Each marker represented A devourer fleet attacking a council world. The invasion was happening everywhere at once, coordinated with machine precision. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving distress calls from 17 different star systems. The attacks began simultaneously 47 minutes ago." Rivera had been expecting this moment. Earth's intelligence services had detected strange energy signatures beyond the galactic rim for months. They had tried to warn the Council, but their messages had been ignored. "What about our own defenses?" Rivera asked. "All human colonies are on high alert, sir. No attacks have been reported in our space." Rivera nodded grimly. The devourers were not attacking human worlds because they knew humans would fight unpredictably. They were focusing on Council space, where they could calculate the outcome of every battle. On the main screen, footage from the first attacks was already coming in. The devourer ships were unlike anything in the current galaxy, sleek metal, forms that moved like living creatures through space. Their weapons fired beams of pure destruction that could slice through the strongest shields. But the most terrifying thing about them was how easily they defeated the Council fleets. The Hegemony battle group at Rigel had been destroyed in 12 minutes. The massive Hegemony dreadnoughts had formed their traditional defensive formation, moving according to tactics that had been perfected over centuries. The Devourers had calculated exactly what the Hegemony ships would do, and they had been ready, with the perfect counterattack. The Kythera swarm fleets lasted only slightly longer. Their hive-mind coordination, which had been their greatest strength, became their weakness when facing an enemy that could predict their every move. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "long-range sensors are detecting massive devourer formations heading toward the core worlds. At their current speed, they will reach Nexus Prime in 6 days." Rivera closed his eyes. Nexus Prime was the capital of galactic civilization. If it fell, the Council would collapse completely. Billions of aliens would die or be converted into machine slaves. His personal communication unit chimed. The message was from Earth Command. "Orders are to maintain defensive positions around human colonies. Do not engage devourer forces. Do not provide assistance to Council species." Rivera understood the orders, but they felt wrong. For all their faults, the Council species were still living beings. They deserved a chance to survive. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving a transmission from Nexus Prime. It is addressed to you personally." "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and Counselor Thexhai appeared. The proud alien leader looked broken and desperate. His energy form was dim and flickering. "Admiral Rivera," Thexhai said, his voice barely a whisper, "I know you have no reason to help us. We treated your people badly. We tried to control you when we should have respected you. But billions of innocent beings are about to die. Please, we need your help." The transmission ended, leaving Rivera's bridge in silence. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. They all knew what the smart decision was. Humanity was safe, in their own space. They could rebuild their civilization while the rest of the galaxy burned. But Rivera also knew something else. He had studied military history all his life. He knew that when good people did nothing in the face of evil, evil always won. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "another transmission is coming in. This one is from the Kythera Collective, the insectoid." Queen appeared on screen. Her usual arrogance was gone, replaced by desperate fear. "Human Admiral, our fleets are failing. Our hive mind cannot adapt fast enough to counter their attacks. The Devourers predict our every move before we make it. You are the only ones who might be able to fight them." A third message followed from the Mordoon leadership, then a fourth from the Vailtar Council. All of them were saying the same thing. "We were wrong about you, and now we are dying for our mistake." Rivera looked at his tactical display again. The red markers were spreading like a disease across the galaxy. World after world was falling to the Devourer advance. On the planet Zerion, where humans had once managed the great agricultural facilities, Governor Vextar watched his defense fleet being systematically destroyed. The Devourer ships moved in perfect formation, their tactics calculated to counter everything his forces could do. Fire all weapons, Vextar ordered, but he knew it was useless. His ships were using human-designed weapon systems that his crews did not fully understand. Half the weapons were not working properly, and the ones that did work were being used according to predictable alien tactics. The devourers cut through his fleet like it was made of paper. Similar scenes played out across Council space. The hegemony lost 3 entire battle fleets in the first day. The Kythera saw their carefully coordinated swarm attacks turned against them by enemy ships that knew exactly how hive minds functioned. On the research station at Wolf 359, Admiral Rivera received reports from throughout the combat zone. Every battle followed the same pattern. The Council fleets would engage using their traditional tactics. The devourers would counter with precision that seemed impossible. Within hours, sometimes minutes, the alien forces would be destroyed or scattered. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, "We are detecting communications from the devourer command ships. They appear to be discussing their strategy. Can you decode their transmissions?" "Partially, sir. The message seems to be, biological resistance follows predicted patterns. Victory probability, 97.3%. Proceed with Phase 2, planetary conversion." Rivera felt a chill. Phase 2 meant the devourers would start attacking civilian populations directly. Billions of innocent beings would be killed or transformed into machines. His duty was clear. His orders were to protect human space and let the aliens face the consequences of their actions. But his conscience would not let him watch genocide happen when he might be able to stop it. "Communications," he said finally. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them Admiral Rivera requests permission to engage devourer forces threatening civilian populations." The response came back within an hour. "Permission denied. Maintain defensive positions. Do not risk human lives for Council." "Species." Rivera stared at the message for a long time. Then he turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all human ships in this sector. Tell them that Admiral Rivera is about to disobey direct orders. Any captain who does not wish to face court-martial should return to human space immediately." None of his ships moved. "Sir," his tactical officer said with a smile, "all ships report ready for combat operations." Rivera smiled back. This was why the Council species had never understood humanity. Humans were willing to do the right thing even when it was stupid. They would risk their lives for people who had treated them badly, simply because it was the moral choice. "Set course for the Vega system," Rivera ordered. "The devourers are attacking a Morden colony there. Let us show them what unpredictable tactics look like." As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Rivera wondered if they were already too late. The galaxy was burning, and only humanity seemed willing to fight the fire. But they were about to learn something important about humans. When they decided to fight, they did not fight to win AC. The message came from an unexpected source. Maya Okafor was 12 years old and lived in Lagos, Nigeria. Like millions of children across human space, she had been following the galactic crisis on the quantum news networks. Unlike most adults, she was not thinking about politics or military strategy. She was thinking about fairness. Maya sent her message directly to President Alexandra Santos through the Children's Government portal. The message was simple. If the aliens want our help, why not make them earn it? Make them prove they will treat us as equals instead of pets. President Santos read Maya's message during an emergency cabinet meeting in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space, all debating whether to send help to the collapsing council worlds. "The moral choice is clear," argued Defense Secretary James Park. "Billions of innocent beings are dying. We have the power to help them." "And risk human lives for people who tried to enslave us?" replied Foreign Secretary Maria Gonzalez. "Our first duty is to our own species." Santos held up Maya's message. "A child in Lagos may have found the answer. We help them, but only on our terms." 3 hours later, Santos stood before the joint session of the Earth Federation Assembly. Representatives from every human world filled the Great Hall in Geneva. Behind them, billions more watched on screens throughout human space. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies," Santos began, "the galaxy is burning. The devourer machines are destroying world after world while the council species who once ruled over us beg for our aid. Murmurs swept through the assembly. Many representatives wanted to let the aliens face the consequences of their arrogance. Others felt that humanity had a moral duty to help. "I propose we offer assistance," Santos continued, "but only under the following conditions. First, the Galactic Council must be dissolved completely. Second, all laws restricting human development and expansion are permanently revoked. Third, a new federation of equal species will be established, with humans as founding partners, not junior members." The assembly erupted in debate, but Santos was not finished. Most importantly, any combined defense force must operate under human strategic command, not because we demand to rule over others, but because our tactical thinking is what the galaxy needs to survive this threat. The proposal was unprecedented. Never in galactic history had one species demanded to lead others in battle, but as reports continued to arrive from the war zone, even the most stubborn representatives began to understand that conventional tactics were useless against the devourers. Admiral Rivera, still fighting a desperate holding action at Vega, received word of Santos's proposal while his fleet regrouped after their third engagement with devourer forces. His ships had managed to save 2 million Morden civilians, but at a heavy cost. 3 human destroyers had been lost, and his flagship was badly damaged. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving responses to President Santos's offer from alien governments across the galaxy." Rivera was not surprised by the first responses. The hegemony leadership rejected the terms as insulting to our sovereignty. The Kythera Queen called human demands impossible to accept. Several minor species declared they would rather face extinction than submit to human command. But as more worlds fell to the devourers, the responses began to change. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Governor Vextar of Zerion, the same reptilian leader who had watched his defense fleet be destroyed, sent a personal message to President Santos. "I have seen my people die because our tactics were predictable," Vextar's message said. "I have watched human forces achieve victories that should have been impossible. Pride is a luxury we cannot afford when extinction is the alternative. Zerion accepts your terms." Within hours, other worlds began to follow. The Outer Rim colonies, which had suffered the worst losses, were the first to agree. Then entire star systems began accepting human leadership. The desperate survivors did not care about politics or species pride. They wanted to live. The Morden leadership, after losing half their worlds, formally requested human assistance under Santos's terms. The Veiltar Council, seeing their energy-based ships prove useless against devourer technology, agreed to human strategic command. But the real surprise came from the Kythera Collective. The Queen, whose hive mind had been perfectly predicted and countered by the devourers, made an unprecedented decision. She dissolved the traditional hive command structure and gave full tactical authority to human commanders. Only the hegemony. Holdouts refused to accept human leadership, even as their core worlds came under direct attack. Admiral Rivera received his new orders while preparing for the largest space battle in galactic history. The devourers were massing their entire fleet for an assault on Nexus Prime. If the capital fell, galactic civilization would end. But Rivera would not be commanding just human ships this time. Under the Emergency Federation Agreement, he now had authority over vessels from dozens of species. The combined fleet gathering at the Vega rally point was unlike anything ever assembled. Hegemony dreadnoughts bristled with human upgraded shield generators. Kythera swarm ships had been retrofitted with human targeting computers that allowed individual pilots to make independent decisions. Morden deep space scouts carried human sensor arrays that could detect cloaked devourer vessels. Veiltar energy. Beings were channeled through human-designed focusing crystals that tripled their effective range. Admiral, his new tactical coordinator, reported, "All ships are reporting ready for combat. Total fleet strength, 847 vessels from 23 different species." Rivera looked at his command display and felt the weight of responsibility. These alien crews were trusting him with their lives, their worlds, their entire civilization. A year ago, they had been trying to control humanity. Now they were counting on human leadership to save them. Set course for Nexus Prime, Rivera ordered. Maximum speed. The journey to Nexus Prime took 18 hours. During the trip, Rivera worked with his mixed species command staff to develop battle plans that no military academy had ever taught. How do you coordinate ships that move differently, think differently, and fight differently? The answer came from understanding what made each species unique instead of trying to make them all the same. The Kythera swarms would operate as independent hunting packs, using human-trained pilots to make split-second decisions. The hegemony, dreadnoughts, would serve as mobile fortresses, their massive guns providing covering fire while human crews managed their defensive systems. The Morden scouts would gather intelligence and strike at weak points. The Veiltar energy beings would provide long-range bombardment through human focusing arrays. But the real key to victory would be something the devourers could not predict. Organized chaos. Human commanders would make tactical decisions that defied military logic. They would sacrifice advantageous positions to save alien crews. They would break formation to exploit weaknesses that computer models said did not exist. They would fight with their hearts as well as their minds. The battle began as the combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Prime. The Devourer fleet was even larger than expected, over 2,000 machine ships arranged in perfect, geometric formations around the capital world. The enemy immediately began calculating optimal attack patterns based on the fleet composition they observed. Hegemony dreadnoughts would engage in long-range artillery duels. Kythera swarms would attack in coordinated waves. Standard tactics, predictable outcomes. Then Rivera gave his first order. All ships, ignore your assigned positions. Attack whatever targets look interesting to you. Across the fleet, alien captains who had spent their lives following rigid battle plans suddenly found themselves free to improvise. Kythera pilots broke away from their swarms to pursue individual enemy ships. Hegemony dreadnought captains charged directly at superior forces rather than maintaining safe distances. Morden scouts abandoned reconnaissance to launch suicide attacks on enemy command vessels. The Devourers' tactical computers went into overdrive trying to analyze the chaotic battle patterns. For the first time in millennia, they could not predict what their enemies would do next. The battle raged for hours. Ships from both sides were destroyed, but slowly the organized chaos began to work. Human intuition found weaknesses in Devourer formations that logic said should not exist. Alien crews, freed from their rigid doctrines, discovered new ways to use their abilities. The turning point came when Lieutenant Sarah Kim, commanding a small human corvette, noticed something strange about the Devourer flagship. Its perfect, geometric design had a tiny flaw, a single point where the hull plates did not quite align properly. Any military computer would have dismissed this flaw as irrelevant. A tiny imperfection could not threaten such a massive vessel. But Kim had an idea that made no logical sense. She ordered her ship to ram the flagship at exactly that point. The corvette was destroyed instantly, but the impact triggered a cascade, failure in the Devourer ship's hull. The flagship, which had seemed invincible, broke apart like a shattered crystal. With their command ship destroyed, the Devourer fleet began to falter. Their coordination failed. Their perfect formations dissolved into individual ships fighting desperate battles. Thank you for watching.